to this show, The Bible Journey. We are glad to be back on air again to continue the discussion. And today we are getting into the book of Genesis, chapter 31, and bits of chapter 30. And that is what we'll be looking at. With me on set is my dear panelists, Pastor John Kabira wa Kabira. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And next is Pastor Peter Nyaga. Welcome. We missed you.
Thank you so much. I'm here today.
Thank you. And next to me here is Pastor Robert Nyamori. Welcome.
Welcome, viewers.
And before we get any further, maybe I'll welcome Pastor Nyaga to pray with us.
Our gracious Father in heaven, we thank you so much. As we have moment reflecting from the scriptures, we invite your presence to be with us. May you be with our viewer. May your Holy Spirit guide us through this discussion. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. Remember that on social media platforms, you can find us and get the discussion going on Facebook, Hope Channel Kenya, on Twitter at Hope_Kenya. The hashtag is The Bible Journey. Now, maybe I should first of all begin by, we are starting from the book of Genesis chapter 30 and verse 25. Then we extend all the way to chapter 31. I don't know what you see that comes out strongly for you, Pastor Kabira.
Thank you. What I'm seeing here is about just reward. A just reward. As the Bible says, if you work, then you need to be paid for what you work. Mm-hmm. And that is what I am able to see, because sometimes we assume because working for a family, you don't have to be paid because you're working for a family. But we are seeing Jacob working for 20 years for his wives and together with the items that he has. And we are seeing the peculiarities, can I say the peculiarities that come in between, and how God uses even what human beings presuppose to be their own natural selection, and God using it for his own divine intervention. What man thinks is man thinks he's working, and the product of his working is what he gets. What he doesn't know that is there is a hand of God in what he's doing. That's a little bit of the last part of it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Pastor Nyaga, what do you see?
I am interested in verse number 27. Mm-hmm. And Laban said to him, "Please stay, if I have found favor in your eyes, for I have learned by experience that the Lord has blessed me for your sake." Now, what I find here is Jacob is a believer in God, and his presence in Laban's family has caused a blessing. Mm-hmm. And so, in application, I would want to say, anywhere where true believers in God abide, there are always blessings.
Sure.
And I think God places us in places so that we can be a cause of blessing to the society. And I think my viewer and any other person who would be interested in this discussion is that as a Christian that believe in God, our lives should always be having positive influence to the society. Mm-hmm. That's what I find this man is confessing. Once you came here, things have changed. I've been blessed all of God because of your presence in my life.
Wow. Thank you. And Pastor Robert.
Okay, for me now we have moved from a man who wanted everything to now saying that you should not give me anything, which tells us now that the man is specific on what he wants and what he wants to be blessed with. Now he has moved from going for anything. Now he can specify on what he wants, even from that family. Wow. And then when we come to verse 33, now he comes in that now he's a man who has considered who God is, because he talks about that I'm going to be answered by God in the time to come. That one tells us that now he has been able to put God into place of what the contribution of God in his life.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's now get into the context here. Mm-hmm. First of all, Jacob has served 14 years to get his two wives, Leah and Rachel. Mm-hmm. Now, he has paid for that. He has his wives. Laban's request is, stay with me a little longer, because I've seen the blessings of your God in my life, in my family, through you, because you've been with me. Now I'm begging, stay with me a little more time. And then, as usual, just like he told him, a month after he arrived at this place, he asked him, what shall I pay you? It's not good that you just work for me without any pay. And he said, I'll work for your child, for your daughter, Rachel, for 7 years. Then again, what happened? 7 years again, 14. Now he asks again, what now shall I give you this time? I think he's being fair to some extent, that a man should not work and not get paid. So he's being fair in that aspect. Now he says, he asks now, this time, what is your request? And what does he answer? He says that I'll work for you and only give me, what is that verse?
31.
31. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he-goats. The long discussion that follows after that. Now, we see it's time for Jacob. He wants to go back home. But out of that request, he decides to lodge a little longer. And there is a hire, a pay for him. I would start with Pastor Kabira.
Allow me to say, what I am seeing is, we read that when Rachel got a son by the name of Joseph,
yes,
I think according to Jacob, now he was ready to move back. Remember, his early intention was just to come, get a wife and go back.
Yeah.
But now he's had to work for 1 month first. He stayed with the family for 1 month, then stayed with the family again for 7 years, thinking he will go. He doesn't go, and then he has to work for another 7 years, and then for another 6 years. It tells me of Laban's character. He isn't really a good guy. That's what I am able to say. I don't think Laban would have done that if he was genuine to his son-in-law. And then from verse 27, and Laban said to him, please stay if I have found favor in your eyes. It looks a trick question. The Bible that I have here talks about Laban trying to use some other means. What I'm seeing is Laban wants to maximize, absolutely, to maximize the advantage of having power over Jacob. But unknowingly, God is with Jacob. He may have acknowledged it, but he wanted to use it for his own advantage. If Jacob only stays here longer, then I'm going to be richer. You see, the intention of having Jacob around is not good. It's for his own selfish ambition. He wants him to stay around so that he can get blessed, rather than having a good time with, rather than good intention for his own children. Rachel and Leah are married here. But I thank God because God had given Jacob wisdom. In his 14 years, he had observed and seen and known that if I work out things right, things will be okay. I'm seeing a sharp guy. Can I say I'm just seeing a sharp guy who did not waste his 14 years. While he was taking care, he observed, he saw the breeding patterns, how they breed, that they are good, they were bad. That was God's own way intention of returning the blessings. Now he has the descendants. God told him, I'll bless you, your children, with descendants. Then number 2, I'll bless you with wealth. I'll bless you basically. Now here is God owns divine way of trying to bless Jacob by giving him a lot of wealth. Even if Laban will try and use scheming works, but God was with Jacob again.
And of course, I see him also looking at the future, being futuristic.
Yes. Yeah, he's planning for the future. He
He's
doesn't
planning
want
for the future, and he's also anticipating trouble in the future, and he's trying to see how can we resolve this in the end. Because if you can read with me chapter 31 verse 42, 41 verse 41, thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. So I think by this time he knows that this guy is not good, like you've already mentioned. This guy is scheming. He only wants to get the best out of me, and then he can throw me out at any point. So that in verse 33 of chapter 30, he says, so shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it come for my hire before thy face. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. And of course, the other side is saying, every animal that is spotted, speckled, and all this, and brown, then shall be righteously mine. Pastor.
Yeah, I think that we need to appreciate the background.
Yeah.
That in these times in Palestine, the animals, many of them were white or one color. It was very rare for you to see these kind of spotted animals in a flock. But again, with that kind of spots and colors, it was a clear identification what belongs to who. So it was a way of clearing conflict between these two as the flock started multiplying. Number two, I think it is an aspect of faith on Jacob's side, that though they are the fewest, with my God who have seen multiplying what belongs to Laban, he can multiply what belongs to me. And number three, with experience now that he has for about close to maybe 7 years of taking care of the flock of Laban, he knows the best practice. Yeah, so I'm looking at it that way, but also I think we are guided as we move from verse number 25 downwards, and even chapter that one, we need to appreciate verse number 30 actually, which speaks of what is happening right from verse number that one downwards to chapter 3, that one, which says, for what you had before I came was little, and it has increased to great amount. The Lord has blessed you since my coming. This is Jacob speaking to Laban. Then now that last sentence, and now, when shall I also provide for my own house? This means that from this particular incident, what Jacob will be doing is working hard to provide for his own family. It was Laban, I have labored enough working for you.
Yeah, 14 years.
And you are my witness. See how much God has multiplied your flock through me. Be fair to me, Laban. I have 4 wives, 7 children here.
4 wives, really? Two and concubines?
Well, we know these are wives, of course. The concubines are not, these are wives. They've born children to him. So he says, I'm a man like you now. So allow me from this particular point also start working towards providing for my family. And this now defines the actions and activities of Jacob henceforth. So I'm looking at it that way, so that even the kind of activities that we see from verse number maybe that 4 downwards, it is based on this principle. This man now is not working for Laban, he is working for his family.
His family, yeah.
To provide for his family. And he has made it very clear to Laban before he started doing this. I want to start working for my family.
Yeah. And then getting down to, maybe I would need Pastor to come in before we get down to verse 37, where there is something that is crucial here that I'm trying to look at and wondering what is happening. But first of all, your comment.
For me, I'm looking at the character of Laban. And I don't know why I'm taking that perspective with Pastor Okabira. It's because of who he is. One is a man who is unjust, and is a man who doesn't consider who this guy is. We are talking of a man, this is a son-in-law. But the way he's handling him, it looks like he doesn't consider who the guy is. And actually, we ended up with one of a son who is born into the family by the name Joseph, and we said he means herding, which means dwelling or cohabitation. Now we look at Jacob, who is going to dwell with this family for the interest of being able to get on our way out how he is going to settle with the family. And so it brings me into the point of identifying something. And I don't know how it came into my mind, but when a man decides to settle with a family and he has paid dowry, do we at any point, do we say that a man, when he has been able to marry a lady and they have settled in marriage, does that man completely finish to pay dowry, or is something that is continuous?
Yeah, according to African perspective, you never
don't
pay.
finish.
Yeah, you don't finish. Yeah, in
I'm
fact-
using pay because of the what we understand. Now, does he give dowry once and forget about it, or is something that you can even keep on giving to your father-in-law? I'm looking at this with the context that is in the Bible. What is coming out is something that we also need to note. For Jacob, it was like, you need to remain to be my servant forever.
for Laban.
For
yeah?
Laban.
For Laban,
Oh, yes,
you
yes,
need
yes.
to remain to
Oh,
be
yes.
my
Oh,
servant
yes.
forever.
Oh, yes.
And there's something that is happening today. You get to marry from a family, and the parents make you a servant as much as you have taken their daughter. So you become a servant that you can't settle down with your family.
Yeah.
You need to be giving back to them,
Yeah.
because they know that you are the son-in-law, so it doesn't, you took their daughter, you need to give back continuously until you go to the grave, which is not the right thing. for
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I know you agree with me that the reasoning behind that, when we see from the downward verses before chapter 31, when the method Jacob uses to multiply his flock is working for him, unlike the previous times when he was working for Laban, we see a man who is working for his own. You know, there's a difference between when I am supporting my father-in-law and when I am supporting my own family. It is a foolish man who will do everything he can to support his father-in-law in expense of his own family. It's contrary to the principles of the Bible.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what I see. Actually, I find a Jacob in Laban's home a very careful man. I think, to me, he has learned lessons where he's coming from. He is very careful even to do what is right before the Lord. Now, he knows I am a man who is responsible for his own family. My father-in-law cannot do that. And actually, when we go to the chapter that one, we'll appreciate more that even his own daughters, the Laban's daughters, now who are wives to Jacob, they also aware that their father is oppressing
Yeah. Their husband.
the husband, who is Jacob, the son-in-law.
Yeah.
And so we see the actions of Jacob being justified. Unlike when he was fleeing from...
From Esau, his brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm appreciating actually even the transformation that is happening in Jacob's life since he left his father's land.
And look here, Pastor. I think you are speaking on the context of, especially from verse 37, what the plan that he devises to get more hearts to on his side. Because initially he said, I'll go through the flock and get the spotted, the speckled, the brown, and I'll have them aside as mine. And then henceforth, let God work out the thing, okay?
Yes,
the multiplication.
yes,
So
yes.
that he can be, I want to be fair as possible. But again, he has some other kind of plan which I think appears to be somehow mischievous, because he says in 37, and Jacob took rods of green polar and of the hazel and chestnut tree and peeled and peeled white strikes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle, ring-struck, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-streaked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not into Laban's cattle. Look at what he's doing. And I don't know how we would take that, Pastor Kabira.
Maybe I would say
Yeah.
it begins from verse 34. When Laban agrees to the plan of Jacob, he supervises it himself. That tells you of something. Let us not read this as just a one verse by one. From verse 25 of chapter 30 to verse 21 is just one section. It's one section that culminates with Jacob fleeing from who? From Laban. From verse 34 it says Laban did the selection himself. And actually Jacob disperses it so much. Verse 36 says he put in a 3 days journey between himself and Jacob. That it was mifugo ya Jacob is here and Laban's is there. You know, it's very distinct. They cannot be mixed. To ensure that they are not mixed, that even if they add up so much, they will still not be mixed. But one key thing is, and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. He may have separated, but still Jacob was feeding this other flock. Now, but then, as we say, as a responsible man, take care of your family. As a responsible man, you don't just do away with your family. So Jacob planned a way in which he will ensure his livestock are the best and good. Now, what he does not know is that he thinks his own input is what matters. But chapter 31, because of time, I know we are connecting it. Chapter 31, verse 10, he recounts of a vision that God spoke to him. He's talking to his wives, Rachel and Leah. But he recounts to his daughters, I mean not to his daughters, to his wives, of a blessing that God had promised him into a dream. He had told him that the angel spoke, verse 11, the angel spoke God to me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, here I am. And he said, lift your eyes now and see, all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and gray-spotted. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel. You remember Bethel? I know you remember. Why you're not? Now, anyway, I just don't want to read it. He remembers. So this was God's divine plan all along, but at the same time, according to me, not according to the Bible, according to me, he came up with a plan which would explain why his animals are like this. But this was God's plan. God had promised to bless him, but Jacob comes up with a plan that will look feasible, but in real sense, who was acting that plan? It was God himself.
Isn't he trying to help out God to achieve his ends?
I cannot be quick
I guess
to
he
say,
should have trusted on God and said, now I've chosen the ones that are of this spotted, speckled, and brown to be mine. Now let God work out a plan on how he'll be able to multiply more for himself and not
I'll help you in your thinking.
Yes.
You see, we appreciate what God does in our lives.
Yeah.
He says, God impresses upon your thoughts or your mind or your heart what you need to do. But again, he allows you to use what you have. It's not that you're going ahead of God. No, it's like he asked Moses, what do you have, Moses, in your hand? He says, I have a staff. So, and this is a man who has been in the business of looking after this flock for a long time. He knows the best. And God gives us knowledge that can help us to have the best out of our lives. So Jacob is using what God has blessed him. We don't see Jacob, unlike actually Laban, because in verse number 27, when Laban says, I have learned by experience, when you check in Hebrew, that one experience is the one that you use for divinations. He had consulted some superpower, whatever, to tell him why he is prospering, and they told him it's because of this man. But we don't see Jacob seeking for, advice from others supernatural powers, he is depending on God.
Now, as we take a short break, just explain to me this. How do I differentiate this with the saying that God helps the one who helps themselves?
I don't see how that can come in here.
It's not even a verse.
It is nowhere in the Bible, but even people think so. You see,
But he's right
let
to
me
help
use the example of
himself,
Abraham. Abraham and Sarah. You know, God has promised a son. Then they take Hagar. Abraham is going ahead of God. But innovation, God shows Jacob this story of the spotted sheep and goats. That is what this man uses. But the aspect of what seemed like he was doing some uchagual kind of something, maybe we need to dig deep into it later as we come to the next show and try to find out what were the practices of those days.
Okay.
Why was Laban not aware of this? We don't see it anywhere in the Bible. Okay?
Okay.
If it was something from a foreign power, then we expect other people would have known the same thing. But it's only with Jacob here.
Thank you. We are taking a short break on the Bible journey. We'll be back shortly to continue the discussion. Of course, it's getting heated here, and looking at the actions of Jacob and all that he did on the flock of Laban and his. That's what we'll be discussing after this short break. Welcome back, dear viewer. This is the Bible journey, and we are looking into the book of Genesis, chapter 31. And now, my dear pastors, if we can get into the discussion, you see what the actions of Jacob lead into some envy, some, what do I call it? Yeah, the sons of Laban realize that what this guy is doing, it's only him who is being blessed, and therefore they envy him. And this results into a schemed plan in Jacob's mind that he has to flee away. Because in verse 1 and 2 it says, "And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before." Yeah, and of course, verse 3 going downwards, there is now he has a conversation with God. Now, if I can bring you, Pastor Robert, you just comment on what you have just finished and what is happening next year.
There's something I noted, and I want to repeat it, that Laban is unjust. But all of us, we know that God is a just God.
Yeah.
We serve a just God. And this is where God comes in. God cannot see you being treated 10 times in an unjust way and he keeps quiet.
Yeah.
And so this is the place where we see God working in the life of Jacob. And there's something we have noted, that in the plan of Jacob, whether he had a good plan, he had planned well, or in a divisive way, God was in that plan. Because so now he had been treated by Laban. And so one of the things that comes for me when I look at this scripture, I'm seeing God coming into place, and he gives Jacob wisdom on the way to do things from now henceforth. And he comes into his plan so that he is able to handle things in the right way, so that he may even get out of this family. Why? Because this man is going the opposite way on God's character. God intending that him be treated in a just way, but he's moving out of that. And so God comes in with a plan in Jacob's mind.
And therefore, in verse 3, Pastor Nyaga, the Lord said unto Jacob, Return to the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. Yeah, and then he calls his family and now starts explaining to them why the jealousy, why the envy, what did the Lord speak unto him, and why they need to go back and kind of run away, not really leave, but run away from their father Laban.
What I get from that story is I see a very dutiful husband.
Mm-hmm.
You know, God has spoken to him, and this particular incident, God is speaking to him something that affects his family. So the next point of action he takes is to call his wives, to tell them what the Lord has said,
Mm-hmm.
that he can involve them in the plan, so that when he is executing the plan of God, he is doing it for the sake of the family.
Amen.
It is teaching me a lot of things. You know, there are many times men, even when God has impressed upon our minds very beautiful and very important things, we don't even share with our families. But I see him calling for Rachel, calling for Leah, sitting them down and telling them, this is what happens.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, these are daughters to this man.
Yes,
they
yes.
are his father, their father,
Yes,
and
yes.
therefore they would need first of all to understand before they run away with him. I think.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm seeing a very dutiful man. I think to me, if there's something we need to get from especially verse number 3, 4, and 5, is to admire Jacob as a family man. I wish if all men would admire him on this particular point. You don't lose anything by telling your wife what you're planning to do. It becomes part of you. So that's point number 1. But also I'm appreciating another aspect of these ladies, especially ones who go down after Jacob talks to them and tells them what.
Especially verse 14, 15.
14 actually, if you can use verse 14, when Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there still any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Verse 15, are we not considered strangers by him? For he has sold us and also completely consumed our money, that is dowry.
Should read verse 16.
Verse 16, for all these riches which God has taken from our father are really ours and our children's. Now then, whatever God has sent to you, do it. It takes me back to Genesis chapter 2, where God spoke, of course, and said, in verse number 24, I think so, and for this reason, every man shall live
his father
and cleave to. You know, I'm looking at that aspect of living and cleaving. These two ladies here, they have accepted to leave their
They
father.
have really left.
They have really
And they have clove.
and they're cleaving to this man. And also I'm looking at in verse number 27 of chapter 1 of Genesis, where God said, let's make man in our own image. And then we go to chapter 2, where it says, verse 18, it is not good for man to be alone. Let's make for him an helpmeet. And I'm looking at these two ladies here, playing in that particular circles. They are true helpmate of Jacob. How? They're telling him what the Lord has said of you. Do it. In other words, you don't have to consult us if the Lord has said. We can't say no to what God has said. I see a spouse who is supporting the husband heavenward. To me, is the best helpmeet that you can have.
They are being obedient and submissive to him in the Lord, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They say God is first. You know, whatsoever God has sent to you, do it.
Wow. And verse now getting down to verse 17, Pastor Kabira, you see that now Jacob executes his plan and what he has received from God through the dream. And it says, then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padaranam, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and rose up and passed over the river, and set his face towards Mount Gilead. Now, they ran away. They did not inform. It says that he stole away, not that he stole away in just getting something which was not rightfully his, but because he went without informing him.
So we think God had asked Jacob to go back to his land of his fathers. So actually he was doing nothing wrong. He was just going back. But in view of the circumstances that are happening, Laban will not have allowed Jacob just to go back willingly. And so he decides, rather than war, rather than lots of drama, I'll just disappear. Unfortunately, his wives, one of them being Rachel, we discussed Rachel the last time, how crafty she was. She steals some idols of her father. That is what was a little bit amazing to me.
And how does that come out for you?
No, because why would she need to steal? Because prior, verse 16, they said, whatever God has said to you, do it. She believes in God. But at the same time, she takes this God. Remember also when Isaac was sending Jacob, told him, go to my father's house, because remember what we kept on saying, my people in terms here was spiritual. No wonder Laban is so unfaithful. No wonder Laban is a schemer. No wonder Laban, because we see him practicing some sort of divination first, and then again we see him having some household gods, which of course was somehow obvious in that particular time. They wanted a physical presence of God. It was some form of syncretism where you worship God in heaven, but you also have some small physical evidence of the God in heaven, which wasn't allowed basically. But Rachel does it. My idea, in my reading, all I could be able to see was Rachel was trying to claim part of the inheritance of his father. Verse 14-15 says, my father now has not given us any inheritance. Basically, what we have worked for. So Rachel decides to pick something that will show she's part of this family. Remember when we read just by passing the name of Dinah? We read the name of Dinah by passing. She needed evidence to show that she slept with his father. There was always something evidence to show you belong to a particular family. Sometimes it was about coins. Sometimes it was about some bangles you'll wear, numbering 10, which will prove evidence of you being in a family. This is what Jacob did. But Jacob did not know anyway. For him, he was actualizing God's plan. But for Rachel, as usual, we keep on saying, we're wondering about Rachel and her belief in God. She thought she can work out something also. Whether for punishment, I don't know. Whether to prove a point, I don't know. But we see her doing something funny later and explaining. What I'm able to appreciate anyway, however, above all this is, Jacob has decided that enough is enough. Sometimes you outgrow your parents. You don't stay with your parents, or even if they are providing, you outgrow some of these things. Go, be ready to. You are a man with a family, children, and you're still there. Like you cannot survive on your own. You need to outgrow. You need to live.
Yeah, and now getting on to just bringing in Pastor Nyamori on the same. Laban discovers on the third day that Jacob is gone, and he pursues him, and of course he gets him at Mount Gilead. But then when he's coming, he has an intention. I think he wants to fight him and take back his flock, take back his daughters and the grandsons, something like that of the sort. But then God speaks to him in a dream and tells him, do not speak anything good or bad against him. How does it come out to you? And then looking at God, God seems to be really siding with Jacob in all that he's doing. Of course, he has told him, go back to your father, go back to your people. And then here is Laban also interfering with the plan, and God comes in to warn him before he does anything.
I just want to pick it from verse 15 before I go to what you have just asked.
Yes.
Are we not counted of him strangers? For he had sold us and had quite devoured also our money. There's something I've just noted and recall. I talked about it, but I want to repeat. Even in the times we are living today, most parents think by you getting married to a lady, you pay. And you see what is reflected here for Laban, he wanted actually to sell the two ladies to Jacob. And yet one of the things that we look at and what reflects on the character of God is that when a gentleman takes a lady from a family, he appreciates the father and the mother. And that's what is reflected biblically, not by you selling that lady to the gentleman.
A human being cannot be sold.
Yeah, a human being cannot be sold. So what is reflected here, actually, the ladies come into terms and they realize, okay, our father, his intention was that he had to sell us to Jacob, which is not biblical. And it's something we also need to note, even to those who are listening to us. Having to be able to sit overnight as a father and a mother and trying to weigh the price of your daughter doesn't come from the Bible. That we are going to give this daughter at $1 million or for $500,000 million is not biblical. It's by the gentleman coming and appreciating that this is what I believe I can give you as my father-in-law. Give me the daughter, because we are going to live together. And that is what I'm looking at this text. And thereafter, as we carry on, one of the things that comes in, and as we look at this text, as you look at what has happened, Jacob is now on his way. When Laban meets him, what does it happen? He wants to take back what he had given him. That one underscores what I've already said. That his intention was, you were to take this because you had to work. And so I'm taking it back because you are moving away from my family. And that brings all about the character of the Laban we are talking about. He was a man who was trying to subject this gentleman under him all through his life.
Now, when he comes, there is some controversy that goes on up to verse 35, and they are having a conversation between Laban and Jacob, and it's kind of, things are getting heated up between them, but luckily God has already spoken to Laban and warned him or cautioned him against speaking anything evil or doing something evil against Jacob, because Jacob is the blessed of the Lord. So God has already intervened. Now they are looking for the idols which Rachel stole from him. So I don't know what you'd say about the whole conversation that goes on in between here up to verse 35. Pastor Nyaga.
To me, it's very interesting. I think the catch in this verse is Rachel stealing the gods of his father. But now, let's look at this. When Laban's come, and the argument, there was an exchange, the words exchange, and finally, then Jacob tells him, okay, you start searching for what we came to search for. We see he didn't go to look at the flock, whether Jacob has come along with what belonged to him. Remember, the bone of contention, which was raised by Laban's sons, is that Jacob has stolen their father's flock. Let's pick it from that particular point. Then we see Jacob fleeing at a time when Laban is not aware. What comes quickly to the mind, maybe Jacob has stolen some part of the flock which belongs to who? To Laban. So he comes, he meets with Jacob and start exchanging words. And then finally Jacob tells him, okay, fine, if you think there's anything that I have which belongs to you, then go along and start looking for it. We see Laban getting to the tent, not to the flock. He went to the tents, he went to the Leah's tent, he went to the maid's tent, he went to, of course, when it comes to Rachel, and Rachel says, oh, my father, I'm in my days, and all that stuff. What is he looking for? So I see a man, Laban is running after Jacob, not because he knew or he thought in his mind Jacob has stolen his flock. There's no way he could have stolen his flock. Remember, we have already seen that particular day when they made an agreement, Jacob moved 3 days' journey. There was a separation between them, a space separation, a distance of 3 days' journey. So there's no way he could have gone back to Laban's home to steal flock and bring them to his side and then start running away with them. So he knew this guy has not stolen my flock. So Laban is running after Jacob because his gods have been stolen. Why does it seem that God is endorsing the stealing of these gods by Rachel? Because you don't see God condemning Rachel in his heart.
Yeah.
And that's why now I guess much interested. You see, now in this particular incident, the challenge here, the bone of contention, is a comparison between the gods of Laban and the true God. And I see a lot of Aaron here with Laban. He is, number one, going to look for a God which has been stolen. Come on. What a God who can be stolen? He cannot defend himself when a thief comes.
Yeah.
And I see God mocking Laban in this part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't find anything to complain about Rachel. She has stolen gods. I mean, it's nothing. And to me, I think I better believe in a God who cannot be
defend
stolen.
himself.
You know, let my things be stolen, but my God cannot be stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the message which we are having. Jacob is telling Laban, come on, you guys, gods have been stolen. What God?
God stolen together.
Go ahead and look
the
for
weather.
him.
Yes, Pastor, as you also comment, of course, I'll need Pastor, you come in after Pastor Kabira and talk about comment from verse 36 all the way to 42.
42, okay.
Yeah, and then Pastor, you can combine with 43 downwards.
So Jacob is, what I just loved, I was laughing at, is Laban's unthoughtfulness.
Mm-hmm.
He was told, the Bible says, he was told that Jacob has fled. So he pursues who? He pursues Jacob. But on the way, God speaks to him and tells him, when you get there, be careful that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad. So what was he basically going to do? Because if he can't say anything good, nor can he say anything bad, he basically had to look for an excuse.
Mm-hmm. It was like God was telling him, go back.
Yeah, God was telling him,
No,
you
God is
pursuit
not
of
telling him, go back.
He's not.
He's telling him, go and look for your gods. You know, this battle is between him and his other god.
For me, I'm just seeing it differently.
Yeah.
He's letting him pursue Jacob for any other reason. Because Jacob, in the end, Jacob, verse 36 now, the one that you're asking is, Jacob was angry and rebuked Laban, his own father. Remember, at first, he had run away from Laban because he didn't even want to tell him. But now, he feels justified, like, there's nothing I have done wrong. Mm-hmm. Why are you pursuing me? Why are you pursuing me anyway? Because anyway, according to Jacob, will understand, he has done nothing wrong. He is within his own rights to carry his own animals, to go with his own wives, to go with his own children, wherever he wants to go, that is his business. But Laban has to come up with a story. And one of the stories he comes up with, why didn't you let me kiss my own children goodbye? Mm-hmm. Then they discover that is a non-issue, as somebody would say, it's a non-issue. So he says, meanwhile, also, you stole some of my idols. And Jacob says, it's okay, you search whatever you want to do. Of course, we know this is the first time we see menstruation that is being discussed. In the first, probably the second time, not the second time in the Bible. And we see how my Bible here puts the commentary like, even Rachel did not regard these gods with so much honor. Mm-hmm. If he can sit on them, probably they mean nothing. Yeah. To Laban, they may mean a lot. But Rachel was trying to say, like, there is something more that means more. Laban has come running. Mm-hmm. What is more important to him? His gods. Meanwhile, who has spoken to him? The God in heaven. Meanwhile, what is his daughter doing? He's sitting on the same gods. Really, so he's basically running after nothing. Mm-hmm. He's just looking for animosity. He's looking for trouble. He has nothing really to talk about. He keeps on saying, this guy is really bad naturally. I can tell he's looking for trouble, basically, because he knows, number one, the gods cannot save him, as Pastor Nyaga is saying. He knows, secondly, that he has no basis. He just woke up and ran. Even God had to warn him that don't say anything good or bad. Mm-hmm. It's like he just wanted this guy to stay there.
I need to come back on the two of you on the covenant that they made finally to end the whole story about Jacob and Laban. Mm-hmm. But then, Pastor, when you look at from verse 36, mm-hmm. Now Jacob is speaking out and reminding him of what he has done to him over the years. I've done this, until God has realized that you are really too mean, you are witty on some things. Therefore, the Lord has chosen to bless me. He's reminding him and telling him why he is more blessed than he is.
For me, it's interesting that a man who came to your place, having been able to be running away from the brother, is now the one you are chasing. Because when we get to the point of Laban, all through, even if he came to get a wife in the house of Laban, it's interesting that now it's Laban actually who is after Jacob.
Yeah.
And this one tells us something, that now the God of Jacob comes into light more than the God of Laban. Because that's what we are seeing.
Yeah.
And that's why Jacob takes an opportunity now to remind him that, you know, we have been together. But the God I serve has seen my affliction, and that's why he blessed me more than you.
He's superior than your God.
He's superior than the God you have. Because now, actually, Jacob, I think, comes into terms to remind Laban that now I know the gods that you have been serving. That's what he's reminding him. That's why God, the God I serve, has seen my affliction more than you. And that's why he blessed me more than what he has done in your life. And this one brings into the context of what we have today. That most of the time, we handle people for many years thinking that we are blessed more than them because of the ways we use, means we use, putting God outside our picture. And we think that we are getting blessed out of that. But at the end of it, God comes into place. And when he comes, he considers all that you have been doing nothing. And he bless that gentleman that you have been subjecting in a different way.
Amen. Pastor, briefly, my director says that we have no time at all. But I think there is a covenant here. If we can summarize it in, I hope my director can just have mercy on us for 4 minutes or 5. We just summarize on the covenant bit that they had to end issues, to clear the air, and know that now we have separated totally. Now this is your side, this is my side. Do not follow me. I'll not come to follow you in any negative way. The covenant.
I'll say one thing.
Yes.
Chapter 30 and chapter 31 have one key theme. What I can call jealousy and rivalship. Chapter 30 and chapter 31 is very clear. But now, when you come to covenant, it is where that kind of jealousy and rivalship comes to an end. And I appreciate what Pastor has just brought up, and that is what I want us to end here with.
Yes.
When Jacob started talking to his father-in-law, Laban, from verse number, let's say from verse 42, unless the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac can be with me, surely no, you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night. That is what brings to the end of the argument. The God of Abraham.
Amen.
The God of Isaac. So what am I learning from this? In this life we'll have conflicts. But anytime we bring God in our conflicts will end. Number 2, when we bring God in our conflicts, even when we have very sharp differences, we will agree. When Jacob takes exhorting the God that he has believed in this life, Laban spoke in verse number 43 and said, and Laban answered and said, Jacob, these daughters are my daughters. No, he's coming back to his senses. I was running after this man, and the daughters he has actually are my daughters. The grandchildren are still my daughters. The word that they have, they're supposed to take care of my children. You know, he comes back to his senses. That's point number 2. In our conflicts, if we allow God to speak to us, we shall come back to our senses. And lastly, there is no covenant that can be done between two people who are not at peace.
Wow.
Ha. For me, I'm just laughing. I am thinking of something different, even if it's the last moment.
Yes.
Looks like Laban was overprotective of his children. He really didn't want them to go.
Overprotective? Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm now feeling. Because of, in the end,
Is it a feeling and
now it's as we're ending. Because as I was reading this, I was looking at this covenant. Of course, a covenant is between God and, between man and man,
Yeah.
with God as witness. So they're making a covenant to no longer fight. But still, I can see the differences. Verse 47, Laban calls the place that they have done as a pillar, they calls it Jegar Sahadutha. But Jacob calls it Galid. One calls it in Aramaic, another one calls it in Hebrew. And we may have agreed, yes, but we're still different. Please don't forget that. You agree to disagree. I think where we are, we need just to end it at this. Then he says, but as you go, please, verse 50 says, if you afflict my daughters or if you take other wives beside my daughters, we have agreed, but don't do anything to my children. Don't even marry any other. They have already agreed. Yeah. So what to me I'm seeing is all along, Laban was fighting for his family, I will understand, in the wrong way. And he really wanted, I'm just a random thought. But anyway, mine was about the covenant. The covenant is important here because it's good to agree even with people who you do not believe with. That is what I just learned. You may not be of the same you may not be of the same faith. You may not be of the same family, but it doesn't mean you cannot agree. Where I live in South Sea, and I'm surrounded with people I am surrounded with the Hindus and Muslims. It does not mean because we don't believe in the same God that we keep on fighting. No. That we can put aside our differences, we can put animosity aside and live together. Especially I'm saying that in due regard to the country we are living in, Kenya right now, where we have so much difference. The electioneering period where people are for and people are celebrating the death of other people, people are celebrating my people. A good example here will be Laban and Jacob. They finally discovered that they are fighting for no reason. And the best thing to do is what? Why don't we just agree? Yeah. Even if it doesn't make sense. Let's just coexist. Let's stay together. You see, this pillar, I will not cross here. That pillar, you will not cross. It may not be like, if you cross, there will be stories, but I'm pleading, let us not cross this part so that there will be peace amongst us. Wow. It will make much more sense, especially in the country we are in right now. We know there are limits to everything. Let's not cross over somebody else's rights. That's what I would imagine we are doing.
Wow. Thank you. I would have loved us to discuss more and more, but the director is already out of patience. Now, I really want to appreciate again for your input in this discussion. Thank you very much. Of course, that marks the end of our discussion on the book of Genesis, chapter 31. And we are glad that you've been with us. Your comments, you can continue giving us your comments through our social media platforms and even the number at the bottom of your screen. Thank you very much. And we end with a word of prayer from Pastor Nyamori.
Dear Heavenly Father in heaven, we thank you so much for today. We ask that more blessings may be upon your children, that even as we tire in the world today, when we have disagreement, we ask that you may bring agreement between us. We ask that, dear Heavenly Father, in the country that we are living, as much as we come from different political divides, we ask that you may work in our hearts, that Christ may be reflected, that we may live at peace with each other. Bless each one of us as we live this today until we meet again, because we ask in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much for watching. May God bless you until we meet again.